Good evening. Welcome to this forum for the Portage County Supervisors for Districts 21, 22, and 25. My name is Sue Buck, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of the Stevens Point area, and I will serve as moderator for this forum. The county supervisors are responsible for the leadership and coordination of the work of Portage County government in providing services to the more than 71,000 residents and the 27 municipalities of the county. These services include highway, parks, and trail systems, and protecting the public through the public safety departments. The county also provides services to children, elderly, and disabled citizens through the Health and Human Services Department, the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and the Division of Public Health. It is the mission of the Portage County government to enhance the quality of life for all its residents by providing fiscally responsible services that enable the citizens to build productive communities, families, and lives. The 2018 budget for Portage County is $103,874,702. I gotta always remember to get that $2. The Portage County Board meets the third Tuesdays of the month at 5 p.m. County committees meet throughout the month. There are 42 county-related committees. The County Board of Supervisors are elected every 2 years on even years and serve a 2-year term starting in April. County supervisors receive a $55 per diem plus mileage of 54.5 cents for county board meetings they attend. Supervisors receive a $50 per diem plus mileage for attending committee meetings with a maximum of 2 meetings per diems per day. County chairs or committee chairs receive a $55 per diem and mileage for attending committee meetings. We appreciate the candidates running for District 21, for District 22, and for District 25 that they are participating this evening. Candidates for District 21 are Tim Corcoran and Jeanne Dodge. Candidates for District 22 are Justin Isherwood and Matt Jakowski, and candidates for District 25 are Ann Abbott and James Zerdroik. In order to provide the most time to hear from the candidates and to provide a fair and equal opportunity to answer questions important to you and this community, I will review the format, time, and terms of this forum. This has also been reviewed with the candidates. Each candidate will first have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and make an opening statement. They will have 2 minutes to respond to questions, and I will repeat the question when requested, and then we will conclude with 2 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will respond first to some questions submitted by the League and then questions from the audience. Questions from the audience must be addressed to all the candidates. If you want to submit a question, please motion to one of the ushers for index cards and pencils, Deb and Mary. The League reserves the right to review and screen questions for relevance and to avoid duplication. The order of response to each question will be rotated. We will alternate which candidate answers the question first. The order of the opening statements will be chosen by random drawing of the candidates' names. As I've already stated, participating in tonight's forum are Jeanne Dodge, Tim Corcoran, Matt Jakowski, Justin Isherwood, James Zerdroik, and Ann Abbott. And we now begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. And our first opening statement will be Ann Abbott.
That's what happens when you have 2 A's in your name. Okay, so thanks for having us. This is my second round of this, so I'm not quite as nervous as the first time. I started into this because I'm a citizen in the town of New Hope, Amherst Junction, and Amherst. The reason I got involved was because of water issues, and so for the last 2 years, we've moved from New Hope to the county. There's basically a group of citizens. We came together in New Hope, and they recommended we should go to the county because they couldn't help us. So we've been there for about a year and a half, and one of the things that we've done is we've really watched the groundwater plan. I think we brought new thoughts to that. Got a lot of changes in that plan. Continue to do that. in my little campaign, I've probably given away close to 300 or 400 maps. And those maps were the results of the Groundwater Committee updating their maps. How I got into it is I looked at my map for Reinhardt Lake, and it was totally surrounded with nitrates. And I'm like, this can't be right. And so we started really just looking at the data and saying, okay, so we have all this data, what's the action? And it created a format of what I'm pretty good at, and that's you got to dig deep and you got to dig wide. You got to learn a lot of things you don't know. The language is really an issue because we're dealing with people from all different professions, which I've done my whole life. And in my career, I've been a person who kind of brings together the experts in different areas. And I'm the bridge. I'm the one with common sense mostly. And so I've been able to talk to all kinds of people in this effort we've made. We've had big farmers, little farmers, we've had lake owners, we've had organic people, we've had just plain old citizens. And that's been great because we've gotten all the different areas. We brought in 7 facilitators.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Our next opening statement is Jeanne Dodge.
I'd like to thank the League for inviting us this evening and also all of you in attendance. I see part of our crowd left, but that's okay. I'm a lifelong resident of Portage County. I began my political career as a citizen activist opposing the county landfill. And this was back in the late 70s, early 80s. I was on the Solid Waste Board for 10 years, approximately. And then I moved on into being county board supervisor. What I want to do is spend a little time telling you how I spend my time as a county board supervisor this term. And I jotted down my committee assignments and found that they're far more than committees of 3 or 4. I'm on the Health and Human Services Board, and I'm also representing that board on the Permanency Planning Panel for Foster Children. They meet 1 to 2 times per month, in addition to the 2 meetings the board has. I'm also recently appointed to the Portage County Transportation Coordinating Committee. I'm on the Portage County Community Development Block Grant Housing Committee. I'm also on the Regional CDBG Housing Committee, which includes, I believe, 7 or 9 counties. I couldn't remember this afternoon. The money has been given out for the Portage County grant period, but there is money available to people from Portage County that need to improve their housing, and this is for low-income and moderate-income families. So please spread the word. That's a current thing, and you can go through Paula Cummings at the Planning and Zoning Office.
Thank
I'm
you.
also,
Sorry, thank you.
next time.
All right. Our next opening statement is Tim Corcoran.
I moved here in 1985 to take a job with the Stevens Point School District. And at that time, my wife and I, with our 2 young daughters, were looking at a couple of possibilities, and it was Portage County, it was this area that really drew us in. Some of the things that we were looking at were, besides excellent schools, we were looking at the cultural opportunities, the recreational opportunities. It's things like that that we've found since that time to just be wonderful experiences here in this community. And in my career as an educator, I think most often people would say that one thing I had the ability to do was to respectfully listen to those people around me and take in their ideas. Took on some leadership roles and was often looking at, well, what's the big picture here? And because of that, spent a lot of time in my own little niche, and then realized that, well, it was time to look at the big picture of the school and help to improve the overall school. So I took on some roles in that and realized that was a good thing. It's that kind of thinking then that's leading me now to run for the county board. It's time to give back to the community that I've really enjoyed, and hopefully put together, or put to use the skills that I have.
Okay, thank you. Our next opening statement is Justin Isherwood.
Thank the league for having us here. In my farm community, I'm called the writer. Among my writing friends, I'm called the farmer. I'll leave it up to you which of those I am. In the last 50 years, I have probably said something that's insulted everybody in this room, one time or other.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, is that better?
No,
Or you want to use
that
this?
one.
It's the little one.
Better? Better? Okay. Want me to go over that again, Dale? As a irrigating farmer, that also insults some people in this county. I think I am running for the county board, and I'll have you know that Matt's my opponent, and he doesn't know it, maybe, but we're related. And I suspect the difference between us is a fraction in how we would decide things, think about things. I think I'm running on that fraction. And that fraction for Portage County is the water issue. I think it's no, it's not the elephant in the room, it's the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the pool. What we decide in the next decade, the next generation, will influence what happens here in the next 100 years. That's why I'm running.
Thank you. Matt Chakowski.
Good evening, and thank you for everybody involved. I'm Matt Chakowski, the lifelong resident of Portage County. I'm an educator, a Portage County board member, a farmer, and highly involved within our community. I work for the Stevens Point area's public school system. I also farm 1,200 acres with my brothers in southeastern Portage County, a farm that's been in my family for 4 generations. At Chakowski Farms, we pride ourselves in our conservation efforts. We have gone to 100% no-till operation, maintain a 23-acre native prairie, and we have removed 53 acres from production that is next door to an atrazine prohibition area, just to name a few things we do. I'm also a member of the Almond Conservation Club. I have taught hunter safety for over 20 years, and I work with our veteran turkey hunt program. I also served Portage County for 10 years on the Wisconsin Conservation Congress, retiring as chair. As a result of my employment and involvement, I believe I'm the most qualified candidate with a broad range of experience. That's not just limited to critical issues and hot topics. Along with my wife, Kimberly, I want Portage County to be a place for our 3 children to grow up with the values, resources, educational, and recreational opportunities that I was allowed to grow up here in Portage County with. It's not only for my families, but all the families in Portage County that I have chosen a life of service and commitment to Portage County. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not
Last
least.
but not least,
James Zedreg.
well, thanks for having us again, the League of Women Voters. I'm James Strike. I'm serving currently District 25, lifelong resident of the town of Elbin, which is Town 25 North, Range 10 East, a little bit of the history. I have 3 adult kids, 3 grandkids, and I've served 22 years on the Rochelle School District prior to my getting involved on the Portage County Supervisor. I was first appointed to the county board when my father passed away in '97, and I've been a member of it ever since. I was first interviewed by Clem Hintz and Roger Richaw to take the position. I firmly believe that the core of our community is our schools, and I'm most proudest of the Rochelle School District. My 3 kids have all graduated from there, and I've had the distinguished honor of giving each one of them their diploma. I thought that was probably why I enjoyed it so much. It's if ever you want to get started on serving your community, it's best to start with school board. I think that's an anchor to everything that proceeds in life. I'm enjoying what I'm doing now with the county board and the variety it offers. I did the county board and school board simultaneously for 4 years, and my wife was going to divorce me. So the meetings got a little bit intense. Currently, I'm serving on the Portage County Highway Committee. I've been on that since '97. I served 19-plus years on the HR Committee. I've been chair and on Ethics Committee. I'm currently also on the Airport Committee. I'm vice chair there, and I'm on Public Safety Committee. And I believe one of the up-and-coming key issues for my area is retaining our first responders, as well as a new and up-and-coming ambulance contract that's going to be on the forefront, and that's going to be critical to my district. So thanks for having me, and hopefully it all goes well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. We will get started with the questions, and just as a reminder, audience questions are more than welcome, and our 2 ushers are there to help you with the cards to take to our screeners. But we will start with a question from the league, and we will start with Tim Corcoran, and we will go down the line, so you know which order we'll be going in, and then we'll alternate. The recent groundwater quality sampling project of the Groundwater Citizens Advisory Committee showed that almost 25% of the wells sampled had nitrate nitrogen levels that exceeded the state drinking water standard of 10 parts per million. What are your recommendations to protect quality and quantity of Portage County's groundwater resources?
In looking at the recent information, and I've attended several of the groundwater committee meetings, and to me, it's always going to be that, number one, we have to protect that. That's a primary resource, and that we have to look at what the science is telling us. And in several of the meetings, looking at the best management practices that can be implemented are critical, and then we have to make sure that those things are being used, especially in the soils that have the highest potential of polluting in the nitrate area.
Thank you. Jeanne Dodge.
This has been an issue that we've been concerned about for quite a long time, and Portage County adopted a groundwater plan some years ago that they've now relooked at and are trying to upgrade. And many of the people in this room have had an active role in where the county is going on that issue. I'm on, as I said, the Health and Human Services Board, and public health is going to be fairly active, working with planning and zoning and the citizens regarding groundwater. I think that Patty's idea at the last county board meeting relating to working with UW Extension experts is a really good place to start, because the ag community values the recommendations that UW Extension offers to them. We all have a part. I thought I was doing a good thing by buying a low-capacity water toilet until I realized that there's less flush, less water, So I'm saving water, but what I'm putting into my septic tank is considerably more concentrated. Do I know whether or not this is a good offset? I don't know. I'll leave it to people like Pete to help me figure that out. But I have decided not to go to the low water flushing toilet in my other bathroom because I'm not sure. So, I mean, there are things that each one of us can do. They talked about it at the last portion of the forum. Fertilizer on the lawns, leaving clippings rather than stacking them. We all have a part in the solution. We all have to come to the table to reach resolution.
Thank you. Justin Isherwood.
The nitrate problem is, it's big, it's complex. And it's so complex, it's numbingly complex. I think our farm sector is well aware that we bear responsibility for the nitrate problem. I'm sorry, septic tanks aren't an issue because N units are about 5 pounds per ton of human waste or cattle waste. It's that 250 units I put on the potato crop. As a farm community, we chase our livelihoods with those yields. And as you know, farms are disappearing. And we're all chasing this almost impossible dream to stay on the farm and yet ever expand and maintain our yields. And we do it with N, nitrogen, nitrates. I believe the solution, and it's not a solution, I believe the amendment to nitrate management lies in the next farm bill that can convince American agriculture to reduce the nitrates for the sake of a better price at the marketplace. We've done that in some arenas in agriculture. Wisconsin growers have the chance to belong to United, a growing group whose design is to reduce production, which sounds antithetical, but it's not. It has improved the price. I think we can reduce nitrates continent-wide by a different schemology. It's a daring one, and it's dangerous, but I don't see a choice.
Thank you. Matt Jakowski.
I think we can look right in our own backyard. I don't think we have to wait for a farm bill to solve the nitrogen problem or at least get headed in the right direction. We need to have the conversations neighbor to neighbor. And this is happening already in Portage County. Some of you may be aware, some of you may not be aware of a group called the Friends of Mill Creek and the Farmers of the Mill Creek Watershed. John Aaron, a very forward-thinking agriculturist, has started a group out there that's been working for a long time, but it just kind of came to the forefront and fruition now. They're a little more worried about surface water and the soil they're on. But we can take that example and apply it to a groundwater area in the Central Sands area here. He's having conversations with farmers. He's giving tours. They're looking at best management practices, and that's what we need to do. We need to look at best management practices. Our farm, personally, I can't remember the last time that we've had to buy commercial nitrogen, right? But that's what we do. The other thing we need to look at is we need to look at what goes on in our own backyard. Before we ask somebody to do something, we have to take a good look in the mirror and say, what are we doing? That was part of the reason that I introduced a proposal at the county level to limit water use on county lawns by 50%. Because if we're gonna ask somebody else, we need to look at what we're doing as a county. We need to see what nitrogen fertilizer we're applying to our lawns. We need to see the amount of nitrogen fertilizer we're putting on our lots at the business park. When you look through the business park contract, there's a cost in there for fertilizing lawns. Well, what do you fertilize the lawns with? Nitrogen. We have to find a balance. between green lawn, not so green lawn. It's just with the farmer. We have to find that balance with best management practice versus return on investment. Nitrogen is not cheap for a farmer to put on. If we can show the farmer that they can make a profit with less nitrogen, they're gonna do it.
Thank you. Ann Abbott.
I originally got into this and people talked about the fish were in danger. And the first thing I said is, I'm not worried about the fish. My background in public health and wellness has convinced me that water is our biggest issue. I don't think it's any secret that the majority of the nitrates are coming from agricultural compared to lawns and septic tanks. That doesn't excuse us for our septic tanks. I agree that we have to take care of our own poop, right? And everybody has to take care of their own poop, whatever it is. And so we've got to, in what I started to tell you about the people we drew together, we named it Neighbor to Neighbor in New Hope. And what we realized as a group is nitrates are the problem, not our neighbors, and that it's going to take all of us to do that. I think we have a lot of tools available now. I think we don't take enough action. I think that we can, at this point, start to identify hot spots. We can zero in on them. I think the maps are an incredible tool for that. It tells us the kind of soil that's there. It tells us how high the nitrogens are. The new report, to me, has some problems because it's too broad. You look at it, and it's just a bunch of dots. And it's like, well, where is that? Okay? We've divided this down in our district where I've got one map for Amherst, Ward 2, one for New Hope, and one for Town of Albany. And we can really now see where that is. And we can see a lot about it. And one reason is because now we're looking at the susceptible soils, very much like Kiwanis done. Kiwani's the leader in the sense of they've been to court longer and they've moved things through the legal system so we really can do something about this. We've got to make sure that we know that our soil is different than Kiwani's, but ours is sand. It's like in Tennessee, we call it a sinkhole. And you can literally almost see those on these maps.
All right,
So-
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And finally, James Zorik.
Well, thanks. I think there's been a lot of great comments in regards to our nitrate issue that have been displayed here tonight. I am with the Wisconsin Potato and Vegetable Growers I work for them in a different realm as I educate kids as to where their food is coming from, and I wholeheartedly love my job. I see the aspect not only of balancing productivity here tonight, but also the long-term effects of it. Everybody says that ag is shrinking. It really isn't shrinking, as it were. There's just less emphasis on the family-type values. Farming has changed in the last 5 years, 3 years, 10 years. Farmers are always ones that can produce the most with as little as they can. The fertilizing applications are a little bit more unique now than they ever have been. Farmers are all time sensitive, so they can just about everything is on iPads, cell phones. They know down to the type of soil they're driving over, to the amount and rate that should be applied to soil types. Farming practices have come a long way, and yes, there are probably more that can come out of it, but I would hope that what we've learned from where we are today, that we can leave it better for our kids. I'd like to have my kids move back to the area. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I certainly think that we can leave it better than what was as short as 10 years ago. It's highly complex only because we're trying to minimize inputs with yields, and that's not always an easy task. Farming is a high-risk business. How some people can do it, it's a challenge just getting up, because God bless them, because they're feeding us a cheap product that goes and services around the world, and I think that's a great one that comes right out of Plover as well.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll start with Jeanne Dodge. A difficult decision regarding the future of the Portage County Healthcare Center will soon need to be made. What are the advantages and disadvantages of retaining the facility as a public entity? And what factors are most important for you?
I knew I'd be able to get back to my list. One committee that I happen to be on is the Space and Properties Committee for Portage County. I happen to chair that committee at this point in time. Don and I kind of switch off chairing every 4 years, so I think that the leadership of the county, which includes myself, have put off making a decision about the county home. We know that the boilers are, about 50 years old, and they've been held together by bubble gum and Band-Aids. We do need to make a decision, but I will tell you, I'm also on the Finance Committee. 3 members of the Finance Committee are not going to be returning with the new board. Part of what I wanted to do this evening was show you the diversity of committee assignments that supervisors have, and you become more knowledgeable about the other decisions. It's not possible to just make a decision on the Portage County home as a single issue. You need to factor it in with all of the other issues going on in Portage County. Finance Committee needs to spend some time starting pretty soon for the 2019 budget. There's always a shortage of money for the services that we offer. We need to look at existing services and then go on to new projects of which the county home may or may not be a part of. There are studies that are out relating to the county home. You could save some money with a new building, but you're cutting jobs. And I think a big part of the issue is the loss of jobs for county employees right now if we don't save the county home as such.
Okay, thank you. Justin Isherwood.
Sometimes I think it'd be wiser just to let Jeannie continue with this, but as we know, the county home, and that's the old name for it, is an endeared institution to this county.
It supplies a demonstrated need. And I often think that sometimes we don't appreciate that need until you're hospitalized, and you don't have to be particularly old, when the doctor won't let you go home without that oxygen tank, or without being able to climb stairs, or without assistance. And for the next 7 days, you're at the county home. So you can go home. So it serves this unique purpose. It's not just for old decrepit guys, because I've been asked that question, or maybe I'm an old decrepit guy, if I could go home without oxygen. But that $1 million shortage stares us in the face. This problem has not been solved because it's not easy to be solved. Listening to the panel before, there was an interesting dichotomy between a public institution and a private institution. And yet, most of us, when we go to one of the local hospitals, they're for-profit institutions. And we don't feel creepy about that. So maybe that next step is worthwhile. I don't know, but I think it has to be looked at. A shared public-private facility, or entirely a private facility. Is that worth keeping the institution the way it is? I don't know. There's a learning curve here, and I couldn't decide tonight what to do.
All right, thank you. Matt Chakowski.
With the Portage County Healthcare Center, you asked about advantages and disadvantages. I think some advantages of our healthcare center that we have to look at and that we have to hold near and dear to us. Number one is our quality of care. You talk to anybody that has been in the Portage County home, anybody that has had family in the Portage County Healthcare Center. They can't say enough about the quality of the care that goes on there. Had a neighbor years ago that was put in the Portage County home at that time. It wasn't even in the healthcare center yet. When he came, he had a broken hip, came back out of the hospital. There wasn't room for him in the Portage County Healthcare Center. Had to go to another institution. He told us when he got back in the Portage County Healthcare Center, if I ever have to go back to the other place, drag me out back and shoot me. And that's what he felt about the care. The other advantage is local control. We do have control, we do have say. We're not just a spot on the board to say, hey, we gave you something. The other thing we have that's an advantage is our employees. They're our employees and they're good paying jobs. Some disadvantages we have to look at and consider is the cost. How are we going to fund it? The survey that's going out to Portage County residents, and if you get a phone call, answer it, and please answer the survey, is going to tell us a lot about how the constituency of the county feels about the Portage County Healthcare Center moving forward. I think as a supervisor, I need to take that to heart. How the people of the county feel, how my constituents feel, is how I need to look at the Portage County Healthcare Center. One of the other disadvantages we have, even if people decide that we're going to go above and beyond the levy with the referendum to fund the Portage County Healthcare Center, we need to start looking at the next step after that. We've talked about capital improvement costs. I've heard about boilers. There's other building capital issues with that we need to look at. So once we get past this first hurdle, we need to start looking into the future.
Okay, thank you. Ann Abbott.
This is something dear to my heart because my mother was disabled, and for 30 years, we went through every new facility that came about. And she ended up dying once she was on Medicaid, and basically because once you're on Medicaid and hospice, they have the total control. If you know what keeps your loved one alive, it doesn't make any difference. If you want that medicine, you pay for it. Medicaid doesn't pay for it. So I really think this is one of those areas that, and I don't want to offend anybody because I've certainly been through this, but this is an expertise all of its own. Healthcare is the largest cost to Americans other than war. It is not a simple process. With what we have, I spent today and yesterday going through the numbers and whatever. Most facilities at this point have 3 sources that they can deal with. They can deal with the hospitalization, skilled care, and also assisted living. They're big institutions. They are handled by people who that's all they do. And they're experts in each of those fields. Here we're trying to handle one little piece that 2/3 of the people are on Medicaid, 1/3 are on Medicare. They're only there for 21 days. The administration in that of getting you in and out with the regulations now are so complicated. The nursing home here had 79 new regulations put on them. You've got a little staff. You've got a place that's totally out of date. You have 100 beds approved, you're only using 60 of them. We're paying for the beds that aren't being used. So when you think about that, it's about $1 million off just to keep it running day to day. Those costs are going to continue to go up. To change a facility that's not housed in these other facilities can't exist by itself. There's no other revenue stream coming in
Thank you.
that helps you pay for that.
Thank you. James.
Strike.
Strike.
There you go. You'll get it.
I know. I keep wanting to put the S in there.
It's a Z.
I know. I know it's a Z, but I say it as a.
The healthcare center has been on the radar as a hot spot for a while. We first have to determine, is it a mandated service to begin with? If so, we've been doing it for all these years out of the goodness of Portage County's heart. The staff there is what's holding it up, and a fine staff at that. As we move forward with our healthcare system that the professionals seem to be in control of, I don't see how Portage County can remain a private entity as we are moving forward in the next 6 to 10 years. That's my own opinion. I haven't seen the results from the latest survey, but knowing full well of what we've been seeing with the healthcare center or health reform and everything that's coming, I don't think our expertise can be handled by 2 or 3 people. These big corporations, look at Portage County, you used to have just St. Michael's for many years, and now we have 3 other providers. So I don't think that Portage County can sustain. I would like to see us reopen up the negotiations once again with the sisters. I don't know whatever happened with that all falling through. I didn't get all the background of why it went through or why it fell through. I just think there's certain aspects of opinions that could reignite some of that bring that back up again. If Portage County is to sustain the service that we provide there, we have to look at it after we get another survey. I know every time we have a problem, it's always a survey. There's probably 4 sitting on the shelves. Every 2 years, we'll throw a survey at it. It's going to be hard to manage this with the turnover, as Jeannie had mentioned, in the way Portage County, every 2 years, by the time you get into the new system and the new thought process, it's going to be election time again, and that's a tough one to call. Thank you.
Tim Corcoran.
When dealing with this issue, I think that from my perspective, if we have to I've taken into consideration my values. Both of my mother-in-law and father-in-law spent time there. My mother-in-law, after moved there from a private facility where we found the care horrible, and received excellent care for her and for my father-in-law. And I look at it and think that we've got this facility that provides excellent care. And I know that the finances are just, it's a very complicated issue, and it'd be disrespectful for me to come in and say, well, I've got the answer to that without knowing all the background that the board has gone through over all these years. I still, though, think it comes down to that caring for our elderly citizens should be one of our top priorities. And how can we best do that? How can we best solve the financial side of it and also provide that care? It's obviously not an easy issue, but I would like to see us continue high-quality care, a place where people would feel fine having their parents go there.
Okay, thank you. And we'll start with Justin Isherwood with this next question. In 2017, Wisconsin overturned the 20-year mining moratorium bill, which asked companies wishing to conduct sulfide mining in the state to prove that they could do this without contaminating the environment. The state gives local governments 6 months to enact their own ordinances related to cleanup and compensation for mining spills in the area. The deadline to enact these regulations is July 2018. Our Plover River watershed could be contaminated. Are you familiar with the current protections, and do you support this urgent adoption of further restrictions specific to sulfide mining?
Yes. And as of this morning's news report on public radio, Marathon County moved on advancing a county zoning that was particular to the possible mining that would take place in the Plover River watershed. And I believe the interest there for mining is for gold, which that still seems a little strange in Wisconsin, but as you know, there's a diamond trail up there too from Rib Mountain, and as a Boy Scout, I remember prospecting there without any luck. Really, our faith is in Marathon County, and I would hope that the Portage County Board has already communicated with Marathon County of our interests and the vulnerability of the Plover River to a possible mine site.
Okay, thank you. Matt Chakowski.
Some of you that haven't been on the board and haven't been to planning and zoning meetings may not realize this, but we already have this working in the process. I believe it was, help me out, Ann, you were there. Was it the February or January planning and zoning meeting that they had the discussion about the mining? I think you were, oh, maybe, I thought you were there. Anyway, either January or February planning and zoning meeting, they brought this discussion up and they said, even though we don't have a mineral deposit in Portage County, what's to be said if one isn't found? The whole planning and zoning committee at that time felt that, directed staff to look into it, see what we need to do, see what Marathon County's language is, maybe look at their language, maybe we can tailor it for Portage County. So we also passed something here, because who's to say that they don't find one in the northern part of Portage County, or the southern, or the eastern, or the western? So we are aware of it as a county board. The Planning and Zoning Committee is working on it. They said whatever it takes, we have to make sure we make that July 1st deadline. So it's already in the works. It's going forward. When it comes to the county board, I will definitely vote for it.
Thank you. Ann?
Well, interesting enough, City Pages had a great article about this today. And the technique that they're moving forward with is zoning. They're going to put in a zoning that controls that, which I find interesting because we can't seem to control manure with zoning. So how do we, I don't understand how they can have a zoning that oversteps what the state is doing. That would be my concern. Typically, what I've learned in the last 6 months or so is if you have a local ordinance, it has to comply with the state or federal level first, and then you can carry that out. But typically, you can't have a zoning or laws locally that can supersede what the state government or the feds are. So my question would be, that would be the first question. And I would definitely vote to do something. I know you know I'm not from here because I don't sound like you, but if you've never seen a mine, I would encourage you to go to one, walk through it. When I fly over my home country, which is the East Tennessee and North Carolina and Virginia and West Virginia, and I've lived in West Virginia, it's a mess. And black lung now, you'll have to check me on this, Dr. Zock, I think is becoming a genetic disease in young miners in West Virginia, which is really scary. Mm-hmm. So for me, these are public health issues. We've got to start looking at them. The amount of cancer we have that comes around all of this is incredible. So it's very important that we look not just at the zoning to keep it from coming, but what's the effect on public health?
Thank you. James Jordan.
Yes, earlier in January, I believe the Wisconsin Counties Association took the initiative and had a consortium, not only of the counties, but they also brought in the Towns Association. So I think rather than leaving Marathon County out there to do all the footwork, I still believe in a consortium movement. I think you have to involve your neighbors, our neighbors, in the problem, because if it's not now, it's going to be a concern. And I believe if you move forward with more than one voice moving forward, I believe you have more power than just Marathon County setting their own tactic, Portage County, and granted, we might not have anything of now that we're realizing that might be of concern. I don't believe that we should take a back seat to Marathon County. I think we should be moving forward with Marathon County, Adams County, Wood County, all of our neighbors, just because of our closeness in and around the Wisconsin River, Plover River. There's too many key elements to the problem to just have Marathon County leading the charge. And as I said earlier, the Counties Association have a fine young attorney, Andrew Phillips, who's leading the charge on some of the language and some of the zoning requirements, I believe. And he comes at no charge. Well, we're paying for it, but he's most certainly well-versed in the background of what it takes to move it forward, not just as a Marathon County issue, but as a central state, central part of the state's, it's everybody's concern, not just Marathon County. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Corcoran.
First, the thought that jumped in my mind is that the name, the mining moratorium law, I think really wasn't the law's name. It's been also called the Prove It First law, which was the mining company had to show that there would be a mine, a sulfide mine that would, after 10 years after closing, had not polluted the waters, and that was an impossible standard for them to meet. Which I think tells you something about that process, that it's a very difficult process to do without polluting. And Wendell Berry, who's a farmer and a writer, said that, he's got a quote, that a good neighbor is the one who lives upstream and leaves the water clean. I think going along with that, we should throw as much support and as much support to Marathon County and whatever they do. And in a way, we've already started that. Mike Wiesa, along with the mayor of Wausau and Wisconsin Rapids, came out with a statement, I think about a year ago, saying they were opposed to this and jointly opposed to this idea. And when we're talking about the nitrates, well, here we're talking about the possible pollution of the Plover River, and the Plover River runs right through the northeast corner of District 21 and right into town here and right alongside the well fields for Stevens Point, an important resource for us to protect. So we have to go forward with protecting this and doing anything we can to stop anything of this nature.
Thank you. Jeanne Dodge.
I have a concern, much like Ann does. I think that you can regulate all kinds of things, but looking back, they haven't worked. If you drive through the town of Stockton on Highway 10 in Custer, you see a gravel extraction pit. If you drive down County B coming out of Arnott going toward Amherst, you have gravel extraction pits. About the only restoration they do after they've dug is build a berm, so you can't see the hole that's behind the berm. That is not restoration as the law has asked for them to do as they're finishing graveling and production, that they restore the land so that it looks reasonably well and fits into the landscape. So I would support anything that anyone can come up with that would help actually regulate mining of any kind, and in particular, what Marathon County is dealing with at this time.
Thank you. And we are going to move into our final question for the evening and then move into the 2-minute closing statements. And we'll start with Matt Chakowski with this one. In October 2017, county supervisors, by a 2/3 majority, voted to move ahead with remodeling the county courthouse and with constructing a new 2-story courthouse on land adjacent to the annex. How will these projects be funded, and where does this leave plans for a county jail?
If you look back at that October 2017 vote, I voted against that. And the reason I voted against that is I felt that we're putting the wrong priority first. Supervisors in the other panel talked that we've been looking at this since 1995. We've been talking about this issue since 1995. Since 1995, this issue has started as a jail issue. We've had trouble with the jail since 1995. And it's gone on for years and years and years. And we spend over close to $1 million a year by the time we pay wages, vehicle maintenance, and bed costs to transport prisoners. Those are jobs that could be here in Portage County. Those are people we could keep here. It could save our costs. I realize there are some security issues with the courthouse, but that should have been the second phase of construction. The jail would have saved us money, and it would have helped pay for itself. Where's that money going to come from? It's going to have to be a bonding issue. We're going to have to borrow money, just like the city would have to borrow money for a new city building, and that throws another wrench in the process. The city's going to vacate the county city building. What are we going to do with that space? So those are some things we have to look at and have to think about. Maybe take a few second pause, find out for sure what the city's going to do. Maybe even have to push the city to make a decision. Are they gonna leave? Are they not? Are they staying? Are they gonna keep occupying their percentage of the courthouse? Those are all things we need to look at in this situation. But again, it's going to come down to borrowing, and we eventually have to pay that borrowing off, so it's going to come from taxes. We're not going to get any money from the state. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, thank you. Ann Abbott.
I kind of thought this had already been a little further along, and so I'm not sure. Matt's certainly closer to that than I am, but I interviewed a couple of people, and it seemed like they have a plan that actually, I'm not totally certain, but the jail would actually be in the annex with court access. It would have its own private elevator going up so that the courthouse folks that work there wouldn't be at risk. That there might be a jail part behind that, like where the parking areas are. So it's not clear to me how far along they are. I do think that we've waited too long. I mean, it's kind of like the health care that we've had. It's like it's a big problem, and we've just passed it along till it's too late. The main thing is that we take an action, and we don't wait. Like in the health care, the estimate was $20 million to replace it. Well, that was so long ago, it's probably more like $40 million to replace it. The longer we put these things off, the more it costs the citizen to pull it out. And so my thing is real data, real time, make action, take action. I think that's true also even in nitrates or water. We wait, there's plenty of data, but we don't make the decision. And I think that might be a technology issue. Most businesses now have real-time data. They can make decisions immediately within a month of whether they're losing money or not. And I don't know if we have the computer system to even service that.
Okay, thank you. Jim Schreik.
Some of the history with this jail project / courthouse / renovation, whatever term you want to put on it, is not as cut and dry as everybody sitting here might lead to believe. The city, in one way, shape, or form, has been the key player of this, holding us pretty much hostage over multiple options that have been out there between relocating, upgrading, transitional. I mean, there's been 5, 6, and you're dealing with multiple attitudes. Let's face it. There's 25 on county board. You've got city council that have their own opinion, and everybody's fighting for turf. It's not as simple as it is in paper. Secondly, I did vote for the last round of improvements. Our courthouse is outdated. We don't want to abandon it. Some of them wanted to abandon our courthouse and build new. I think it has life in it, so we're going to be putting in new windows, new roof, new HVAC. We're going to be adding a courtroom. We're going to be adding some more electronics, and it's a given. It needs some love, just like our healthcare center. That's why the courthouse is going the direction it is. We couldn't get a supermajority vote for passage of the correction jail, whatever term you want to use on it, to come full fruition. And it went to a vote that wasn't a binding. It was just a consideration. Whether that was a good move, I thought it was. If it has to be, it's going to be. Whether it is downtown, that's why it's destined. We had to start someplace. And it started first with the remodeling of our current courthouse. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Corcoran.
I'm certainly supportive of the remodeling of the current courthouse. A building like that in its position helps keep the downtown of Stevens Point kind of in the center of things, and I've always liked that idea. The Again, it's one of these complex issues that has gone on for a very long time, lots of deliberations. So and in addition, I remember the advisory referendum about it and how that was a negative, I guess you would say, in terms of going ahead with anything else, and what we turn to the county board and have to make those decisions. And that's one of those tough things that, again, I think you just have to sit back and take in the best information that you can as a board member, and then vote the way your values tell you to vote in that instance.
Okay, thank you. Jeanne Dodge.
We have about $500,000 worth of studies relating to the courthouse and the jail and the needs that are present that we have kicked down the road for a very long time. We went to referendum twice, both referendum failed. So as a committee chair, I felt that we needed to move this forward whether or not the referendum failed. We have hired a project overseer, and we are currently interviewing architects for the building. We're considering right now building the new courthouse in addition to renovating the existing county city building. The whole idea is that the jail will be phased in. We can do financing through a phasing setup, as well as the building. It's not ideal, but it was the only solution we could come to. I think that the county city building has great value. There are possibilities of the county using that space if the city leaves, so I have really no concern about that. But we did stay downtown because the city wanted all of the activities and the personnel in the downtown area. So I personally am a little disappointed that they have moved so quickly to build a new city hall, but so be it. The county is prepared to deal with that, whether they stay or whether they leave, but I surely would like them to reconsider staying in the existing building. I think that it can work for everyone involved.
Thank you. And finally, Justin Fisherwood.
Well, I regret that Portage County abandoned the courthouse of my childhood some 70 years ago.
Seeing what other communities have done with their old courthouse, and yes, they are problematic. Well, that ghost is not going to be saved. I think there's a problem when a courthouse is in a suburban location, not just for handling the prisoners from the jail to the courthouse, adding distance to that transportation, but just for the law community. A central location makes for an efficient kind of justice delivery system. Rebuilding the courthouse is going to be a problem. Just the structures, the water pipes, which may need replacing, windows need replacing, that's a major thing. And yes, in light of what we know of modern American construction, it's easier to knock it down and build new. But then we get this disconnect. Does that disconnect matter? I don't know. As for the jail, it's too bad it wasn't built in the first place to be expanded like the library at the university, to add floors. But beyond that, there's the question of the administration of law and justice. Mandatory sentencing hasn't done our jail needs any service. And we need to ask some questions about when people are incarcerated, is society any safer? Or are we just as safe when you put a bracelet on someone? One way to save the jail problem is not have to build so many of them.
Thank you. We are going to move into our closing statements. The closing statement is an opportunity for the candidates to comment on topics not covered in the questions. And again, the order of the closing statements will be chosen by random drawing. And our first closing statement will be by Jeanne Dodge.
I knew that, I'm psyched. I have several other committee assignments that I'd like to just touch on here. I am a member of the Justice Coalition, the Juvenile Detention Facility Committee that meets, now we have decided to run it for 3 years, so it won't be an annual meeting. There are so many issues facing Portage County that need good, strong people to speak up. I appreciate Justin's position. As a member of the Justice Coalition, you will find the programs that are being offered in Portage County in lieu of jail, and there are several. So there is so much for new people to learn, and it's taken me, I'm not sure I want to say how many years I've been doing this, but it's been over 20, and there are a lot of things that I don't know that are going on in other committees in Portage County. But I want to thank the League for inviting us. It's been an eye-opener for me. I just want to say that I represent Stockton north of Highway 10 and all of the town of Sharon. I go to all of their town board meetings, and of course I go to the town of Stockton board meetings since I'm a supervisor on that board. My phone rings, I answer it if I'm home, so I encourage my constituents to call anytime, daytime, not nighttime.
Thank you. Tim Corcoran.
Well, thank you all, or the people who have stayed with us through considering the weather outside. And thanks also to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. On my side, looking at this, I feel like I'm interviewing for a job. And one of the first jobs I had after graduating from college, after getting hired, they said, well, you know, you have this college degree, but it doesn't mean anything to us. You don't know what you're going to do here. We will train you. Your college degree means, and the grade you got means you're going to be, you have the ability to learn, and we're going to train you. And I feel that way about this job as well. I guess, and I'm just going to reiterate some things that I've already said, which is that the role of the county board member, I think, first off, is to be a respectful listener to those people who you're representing, maybe the stakeholders and issues that come before the board, and to look at the big picture and consider everything that's going on. And the big picture is, well, what's best for the citizens of the county. When I kind of looked at it and said, what are the three big issues, or three big concerns that I would have, would be, one would be the health of the citizens, one would be the environment of the county, and the last would be the communities that we have, the communities that we develop. And those things would be foremost in my mind in being a board member. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Jakowski.
Over 5 years ago, I started this journey. I've sat on the county board for 4 years. 5 years ago, I started attending county board meetings, town board meetings, towns association meetings, getting involved, hearing what's going on out there, hearing from my constituents, hearing from the people in my district. I've attended numerous town board meetings, many committee meetings outside of the committees I sit on. Towns association meetings, as I've mentioned. I'm not afraid to do the research. I'm not afraid to ask the tough questions. I'm not afraid to reach out to my constituents and ask them how they feel. I like to have those conversations, neighbor to neighbor, friend to friend, enemy to enemy. We need to have those discussions. That's how I learn, that's how I get educated. Mr. Isherwood talked about a fraction on water issues tonight between us. I wonder if there is that fraction. Look at my voting record. Voted for every water resolution ever. I'm not afraid to listen to all the parties. That's everybody. And then we have to make the decision that's what's best for all of Portage County, not just own personal vendettas. Thank you, thank the league, thank all of you that have stuck with us. As a member of the highway committee, give that snowplow some room tonight on your way home. Those guys are gonna be working long hours. As I peek through the crack here, I see quite a few snowflakes coming down, so be careful on the way home. Safe trip, everybody.
Thank you. James Stroik.
Z is not going to be last. Well, I appreciate it for the invite from the League of Women Voters. Just a quick background of some of the other issues that are out there. I want all communities to keep in mind there's an SDP, which is seriously violent people that are in the town of Albin. Every town district better be aware of what could come to your vicinity. It's not a good issue to have in your district. Most of the housing that comes with these issues are owned by lawyers. It's a high-stakes game that they're playing, and they're playing it with our kids and our future. Secondly, be better keep in mind that there's a possibility of a possible wheel tax coming. That's coming from our transportation end. You don't want to hear that, but we're having a major shortage in the transportation side. Foxconn has taken 95 million plus of which is supposed to be RMA monies for counties, and that's being taken there. So consequently, we're going to pay the price for that. That's going to be a key issue. The other key issue is going to be the renegotiation of our ambulance contract. And I'm hoping to be on that committee because the rural community where I represent is a major player in this, because we're out in the middle of corner of the northeast part of our county, which relies heavily, and we have zero options as outside competitiveness that would go with us. I'd like to be on that. Keep in mind, county board structure is a 2-year term. It's appointed by the Executive Ops Committee, and that's another one that you have to be interested in. Your delight is that you can be on certain ones that you hold interest in is. And mine happens to be the Highway Committee, and I enjoy ever so much as being on the Law Enforcement Committee. So hopefully everybody can have a good time and get out and vote on April 3rd, and I hope you all show up then. Thank you.
Thank you. And Adam.
Am I last?
No?
Hey,
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm seeing this very different. I think it's time for change. Tomorrow I'm going to be 71. So I'm not the one that should be saying this, but I think we have a lot of expertise that are kind of new that we could look at. I think we need to shake this box upside down and see how it comes out. You know, we could combine the city and the county and make it a total municipality. That's not unheard of in bigger places. Maybe it would expand us for growth. I don't know, but I'm looking for new ways. I'm looking for new technology. I'm looking to use that, even down to how I asked my people, whoever you might be or not, but you know, I'm trained as a collaborative leader. What that means is I have to come in, work with the whole group. I have to make sure we know what the problem is before we try to solve it. And just like we've heard here, we've heard a lot of different sides, but you know, this is rumor. We're working off of rumors here. My question is, why don't we have this data? Why are we up here trying to figure out what's going on next? I mean, to me, that should be pretty public by this point. And so that's a concern of mine. You know, it's just like in my neighborhood, I'm listening to rumors. And what I do is I go knock on doors. I talk to people. Is this a rumor or is it true? And I think we've got to have a new shift in this. And for God's sakes, we got to get some younger people. Look around the room here, okay? We're all going to be dead in probably 20 more years, if we're lucky, right? So we've got to do something to recruit new people in here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And last but not least, Justin Isherwood.
And I thank the league as well. And I'm a little saddened that we don't get to go to the back room now and talk as candidates again, but in a little more lubricated fashion. And then we don't have to go home at all. I'm mindful of being 8 years old and sitting on the seat of the pickup truck and turning to my dad and say, is it my turn to drive? With apologies to Matt, I want a chance to drive. I have been through an issue that to some degree is connected with the county board that deals with, I believe, the future of landscapes and public rights in Portage County, about agriculture being able to do something better than what's there now. I believe that situation existed to some degree because of county administration. It should have been avoided long ago. I'm very biased on that. I come to this challenge as a conservationist, as a farmer. I don't know a lot of the details of the problems that supervisors engage. I know my skills as a writer. There's lots of things I write about that I don't know. I hope you don't read that way, but because you can find out things. You study. You're a student all your life. That's what I bring to the board. And there's the red card. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Thank you to the candidates for their time and their energy that they've invested in running for the county board and for participating in this forum. I'd say feel free to talk afterwards, but I think the weather is really nasty, and I think they would like to get us out of here as well. Midstate would like us to leave. Be sure to stop at the, and if there's any candidates literature, no? Okay. On the April 3rd ballot, Portage County voters will also be voting for several state and local offices and a referendum on the state treasurer's position. The League of Women Voters has a candidate guide for national and stateside elections, which may be found at vote411.org. And League contact information, including our website, email, and mailing address, is available at the League display back there on the counter. This concludes the forum for the Portage County Board of Supervisors positions in Districts 21, 22, and 25. Thank you, candidates and audience, for your participation and attendance. We also wish to thank Sarah Thoreau, who taped and will replay the forums on Community TV Channel 984. There are handouts with the information over there on the counter as well, but to let you know, it'll be replayed this Friday, March 9th at 8 p.m., Saturday, March 10th at 1 and 9 p.m., and Monday, March 12th at 5:30 p.m. These broadcasts are an appreciated service to the Portage County area citizens. Thank you to all the League members who volunteered in various roles this evening that made the forum possible, and we couldn't do it without you. And importantly, thank you to the staff at the Mid-State Technical College for allowing us to use this facility. The League believes that when you vote, you are participating in one of the most basic and important responsibilities you have as a citizen. When you vote, you are empowering your political voice. Please remember to vote on April 3rd. Your vote does count. Now let us show our appreciation to all the candidates. Thank you, and have a safe trip home.